When my own son and my late wife's sister began to poison her legacy, they did so one drop at a time. They thought my senses, like my spirit, had grown dull with age. They did not confront me with legal papers. They presented me with a beautiful, fragrant lie. So I created a lie of my own, a magnificent new perfume with a devastating secret in its heart. A secret that would, in its own time, bloom into the foul stench of their greed. They believed they could bottle a memory. They were about to learn that a true artist can also bottle a reckoning. Before we uncap this story, please subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments what scent instantly takes you back to a specific memory. My name is Theodore Monroe, and at 75 years old, my life is a conversation with the invisible. Here in the old money enclave of Newport, Rhode Island, I am a master perfumer. My world is a quiet laboratory filled with glass beakers, brass scales, and hundreds of small, dark bottles, each containing a memory, a possibility, a note in a future symphony of scent. This business, Monroe Perfumes, was my late wife Isabel's creation. She had the soul of a poet and the nose of a chemist. She could smell the story in a rain-soaked garden or the sadness in a piece of driftwood. Together, we built a small, exclusive perfume house renowned for its quality, for its use of rare, natural ingredients, and for its refusal to compromise. After Isabel passed, I became the custodian of her legacy. I continued to produce her classic scents, each bottle a testament to her genius. The heart of our business is a formula book, a heavy, leather-bound tome where Isabel recorded every one of her creations. It is a book of secrets, of precise measurements, of the delicate alchemy that turns flowers and spices into emotion. My son, Julian, and Isabel's younger sister, Genevieve, became my partners after Isabel's death. Julian is a gentle soul, but he lacks his mother's artistic fire and my discipline. He is easily led, a ship without a rudder, content to drift in the wake of a stronger vessel. That stronger vessel is Genevieve. She is charming, intelligent, and possesses a will of iron she conceals beneath a warm, familial smile. She became the face of the business, handling the marketing and sales, while I remained in the lab, the quiet, reclusive artist. She was, I believed, the perfect partner, as fiercely protective of Isabel's legacy as I was. The first discordant note in our harmony was subtle, a change in the air I could not immediately place. About a year ago, Genevieve announced a new strategy to modernize the brand. She spoke of supply chain efficiencies and sourcing new suppliers. It all sounded very professional, very sensible. I was a craftsman, not a businessman, so I trusted her judgment. Then, 3 months ago, I was working on a fresh batch of our most iconic scent, Isabel's Garden, a complex floral built around a heart of true jasmine absolute, one of the most expensive and precious ingredients on earth. As I measured the components, I noticed that the jasmine absolute from our new supplier felt thin. It lacked the deep, rich, almost indolic warmth of the real thing. My nose, the instrument I have trusted for 50 years, sent a quiet, insistent alarm to my brain. This was not the soul of a flower. It was the ghost of a chemical. On a hunch, I took a sample and ran it through my gas chromatograph, a machine that can separate a substance into its individual chemical components. The result was a cold, hard, scientific confirmation of what my nose already knew. The sample was 90% synthetic benzyl acetate, a common, cheap fragrance chemical with only a trace amount of real jasmine. It was a clever, high-quality fake, but a fake nonetheless. My first thought was a simple mistake from the supplier. I brought the chromatograph results to Genevieve, my face a mask of concern. She looked at the data, and her performance was flawless. She feigned shock and outrage. She promised to call the supplier immediately to rectify the error. "Theo, this is unacceptable," she declared, her eyes flashing with a believable fire. To think they would try to pass off this chemical garbage as the real thing, I will handle this. I wanted to believe her. But a judge does not ignore evidence, and a perfumer does not ignore his nose. The scent of deception, once detected, is impossible to forget. I began a quiet, secret audit of our entire inventory. Late at night, after Julian and Genevieve had gone home, I would take samples from the new batches of our other perfumes. The results were the same. The rare Bulgarian rose oil in our Sonnet 18 had been replaced with a synthetic geraniol. The precious smoky vetiver from Haiti in our midnight bourbon was now a cheap, lab-created substitute. It was a systematic secret poisoning of our entire line. They were gutting the soul of Isabel's creations, replacing her art with cheap chemical lies, all while continuing to charge our loyal customers a premium for the authentic, handcrafted legacy they believed they were buying. It was a betrayal of our customers, a betrayal of my trust, but most unforgivably, it was a desecration of Isabel's memory. And I knew, with a certainty that settled in my heart like a cold, heavy stone, that my son, my quiet, gentle Julian, was complicit in all of it. The lie was too big, too systematic for him not to know. He was allowing his aunt to turn his own mother's art into a cheap, profitable fraud. They thought my senses were fading, that I was just a sentimental old man lost in the memory of a smell. They were about to learn that a master perfumer knows how to create more than just beautiful scents. He knows how to create a lingering, unforgettable, and deeply unpleasant truth. The discovery of the synthetic ingredients was the first tremor, but the earthquake that revealed the full, ugly landscape of their betrayal came a week later. The lie was not just about profit. It was about a love affair, a sordid secret that was being funded by the destruction of my wife's legacy. I had installed a small, discreet security camera in the main office a few years prior, a simple measure after a minor break-in. I had almost forgotten about it. But now, my suspicions awakened, I began to review the footage from the past few months. I would watch it late at night in my lab, the silent, grainy images a stark contrast to the fragrant air around me. For weeks, I saw nothing but the ordinary rhythm of the business. Then, I found it. It was footage from a late Tuesday evening, a night when I had gone home early with a headache. The footage showed Genevieve and my son, Julian, in her office after everyone else had left. They were not discussing business. They were in each other's arms, a passionate, desperate embrace that spoke not of a new romance, but of a long-held secret one. I watched, my heart turning to ice, as my son and my late wife's sister kissed, their betrayal a silent, moving picture of the deepest possible disloyalty. I kept watching, my hand shaking with a cold, silent rage. Their conversation, which the camera's small microphone picked up with surprising clarity, was not about their love. It was about their plan. "Is your father suspecting anything?" Julian asked, his voice a low, nervous whisper. Genevieve laughed, a soft, confident sound. "Theo? He's a sweet old man, darling, but he's lost in a cloud of perfume and memories. He believes everything I tell him. He thinks I'm the fierce guardian of his precious Isabel's legacy." "And the money from the synthetics?" Julian pressed. "It's working perfectly," she confirmed. "The profit margins are astronomical. Another 6 months, and we'll have enough to launch our own line, to leave this dusty old museum behind and build something modern, something ours. We just need to keep him happy and distracted." I sat there in the dark, the glow of the monitor illuminating my face, and I finally understood. The affair was the engine, but the inheritance was the fuel. They were not just lovers. They were co-conspirators in a long, patient heist. They were gutting my business from the inside out, using the illicit profits from their fraud to fund their escape. A new life built on the ashes of the one I had shared with Isabel. The turning point for me was not a moment of decision, but a moment of profound, clarifying insight. Confronting them would be useless. They would deny the affair. They would gaslight me about the ingredients. They would paint me as a grieving, paranoid old man. A direct attack was a fool's game. My revenge, I realized, had to be as subtle, as complex, and as slowly unfolding as the creation of a fine perfume. It would be a scent, a new perfume, a final masterpiece that I would create just for them. I began my work the very next day. I announced to Julian and Genevieve that I had been inspired, that I wanted to create one last spectacular perfume to honor Isabel's memory. I would call it Isabel's Secret Garden. I told them I wanted it to be the most exclusive, most luxurious, and most expensive perfume we had ever produced. I saw the greedy, triumphant glint in Genevieve's eyes. She saw a golden opportunity, a final, massive cash grab before they disappeared. She gave me her full, enthusiastic support. "Theo, that's a magnificent idea," she declared. "A final tribute. It will be our crowning achievement." She promised to source the rarest, most expensive ingredients for me, no expense spared. She believed she was indulging a sentimental old man's final project, a project she could load with cheap synthetics and sell for a fortune. She had no idea she was giving me the very tools I needed to build my trap. My plan was built around an ingredient so rare it is almost mythical in the world of perfumery: ambergris. True ambergris is a waxy substance produced in the digestive system of sperm whales, aged for years in the salty, sun-drenched ocean. It is one of the most valuable substances on Earth, prized for its unique, complex scent and its incredible ability to fix and exalt other fragrances. It is also, I knew, a perfumer's perfect Trojan horse. I told Genevieve I needed a large, high-quality piece of ambergris for the heart of my new creation. She, of course, procured a clever synthetic replica that smelled vaguely of the real thing but lacked its soul. This was exactly what I had counted on. The true genius of my plan, however, was not in the perfume itself, but in the final finishing touch. I told Genevieve that for this special edition, I wanted to do something Isabel had always dreamed of. I wanted to place a single, tiny, perfect pearl inside each bottle, a hidden jewel that would be a final secret gift to the customer. She loved the idea, the sheer, marketable luxury of it. She sourced 1,000 beautiful, tiny freshwater pearls. My trap was now almost complete. I had the fake ambergris. I had the pearls. All I needed was one final secret ingredient, an ingredient that would turn my beautiful, luxurious perfume into a slow-acting, public, and utterly humiliating stink bomb. What do you think is a more powerful tool for revenge? A direct, explosive confrontation, or a slow, creeping, and undeniable truth? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and hit the like button if you appreciate a well-crafted plan. The creation of Isabel's Secret Garden became the perfect camouflage for my own secret work. My laboratory, once a place of quiet, nostalgic routine, was now the staging ground for a meticulous act of chemical warfare. Genevieve and Julian saw me as a man obsessed with a final, sentimental masterpiece, a doddering artist lost in the pursuit of a perfect scent. They saw me hunched over my beakers and scales, surrounded by vials of essential oils, and they felt a smug, condescending pity. They had no idea I was not just composing a perfume. I was composing their downfall. The full, chilling extent of their betrayal was revealed to me piece by piece during this period. With their guard down, their conversations, captured by the hidden microphones, became bolder, more arrogant. I listened each night to the daily recordings, a quiet, methodical ritual of pain and purpose. I heard Genevieve on the phone with a packaging designer, describing the bottle for my new perfume. "It needs to scream luxury, darling," she purred. "Think crystal. Think gold leaf. We're going to price this absurdity at $1,000 a bottle. The old fool's last gasp is going to be our golden parachute." I heard my son, my own son, laughing with her as they looked at travel brochures for the Maldives. "Can you imagine, Jen?" he said, his voice giddy with a childish excitement. "No more smelling like a dusty old flower shop. Just sun and sand and us. They were not just stealing from me. They were mocking me, laughing at the very world I had built, the world that was funding their escape. The betrayal was not just in their actions. It was in their utter, contemptuous lack of respect for the life, the love, and the art they were systematically dismantling. The immediate consequence of hearing these conversations was the complete eradication of any lingering doubt or sentimentality. My son was not a victim in this. He was a willing and enthusiastic co-conspirator. My late wife's sister was not just a greedy businesswoman. She was a predator who had used my grief as a hunting ground. My course of action was no longer just about justice. It was about a controlled demolition. I had to bring their entire rotten structure down upon their heads. My plan rested on a simple, stinking truth of chemistry. I needed a compound that was odorless and stable when sealed in the perfume, but that would, over a short period of time, react with another chemical to produce a truly vile and unforgettable smell. My secret ingredient was dimethyl sulfide, a compound that, in tiny trace amounts, can add a savory, truffle-like note to a fragrance. In higher concentrations, however, it is the chemical responsible for the smell of rotting cabbage and sewer gas. The second key was the catalyst. This was the genius of my plan. I went to a specialty chemical supply company and purchased a small quantity of silver nitrate. I then took the 1,000 beautiful tiny freshwater pearls that Genevieve had sourced for me, and in the dead of night, I carefully coated each one with a microscopic invisible layer of the silver nitrate solution and let them dry. Silver nitrate is a powerful oxidizing agent. When the pearl, with its invisible coating, was dropped into the perfume, it would remain inert, sealed away from the air. But as soon as the perfume was opened and used, the introduction of oxygen would trigger a slow, inexorable chemical reaction. The silver nitrate on the pearl would react with the dimethyl sulfide in the perfume, breaking it down and releasing its full, putrid, cabbage-stinking potential. The perfume would not just go bad, it would transform. It would start as a beautiful, luxurious floral, and over the course of a week or two, it would slowly, inevitably, begin to reek of pure, unadulterated rot. It was a time bomb, and the fuse would be lit by the very customers they were trying to swindle. I began to mix the master batch of Isabel's Secret Garden. I used the fake synthetic ambergris they had provided as the base. One added a few beautiful, genuine top notes, a touch of real bergamot and neroli, just enough to make it smell exquisite upon first application. And then I carefully, precisely, mixed in the odorless, high-concentration dimethyl sulfide. The final liquid was beautiful, a pale, golden fluid that smelled for now like a masterpiece. The day of the bottling was a grand ceremony. Genevieve and Julian stood by, watching with proud, proprietary smiles as I, with my steady craftsman's hands, filled each exquisite crystal bottle. Then came the final, fatal step. And now, I announced, for Isabel's secret. I took the small bowl of silver nitrate-coated pearls, and one by one I dropped a single, tiny pearl into each bottle. They sank slowly through the golden liquid, a perfect, poetic symbol of the hidden, decaying secret at the heart of their enterprise. They applauded. They actually applauded, their faces alight with greed. They thought they were watching a sentimental old man add his finishing touch. They had no idea they were watching a master chemist arming 1,000 tiny, fragrant bombs. Is it more satisfying to see a villain get their comeuppance in a single, explosive moment, or to watch their downfall unfold slowly, piece by agonizing piece? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. With the 1,000 bottles of my fragrant Trojan horse now corked, sealed, and sitting in their beautiful silk-lined boxes, the final phase of my plan began. This was no longer about chemistry. It was about marketing. I had to ensure that this perfume, this instrument of their downfall, was not just sold, but celebrated. I had to help them build the pedestal from which they would have their great public fall. My decision was to play the part of the reclusive artist to perfection. A man who had poured his last ounce of creative energy into his swan song and was now, too, emotionally drained to participate in the vulgar business of selling it. This role forced Genevieve to take center stage, a position I knew her ego would not allow her to refuse. "Genevieve, my dear," I said to her a week after the bottling, my voice a carefully crafted whisper of artistic exhaustion. "I cannot face the crowds, the interviews. My work is done. A perfume must speak for itself now. You must be its voice." Her eyes lit up with a triumphant, predatory gleam. She saw this not as me abdicating responsibility, but as me handing her the crown. She would be the face of this masterpiece, the brilliant businesswoman who had guided her reclusive, genius brother-in-law to this final, lucrative triumph. "Of course, Theo," she said, her voice a purr of false sympathy and real ambition. "You rest. Julian and I will handle everything. We will make sure Isabel's final legacy gets the launch it deserves." And so she began. Genevieve orchestrated a marketing campaign of breathtaking arrogance and hypocrisy. She hired a top-tier public relations firm. They crafted a story, a beautiful, poignant narrative about a grieving husband's final, fragrant love letter to his departed wife. They sent out press releases filled with my own sentimental quotes she had cherry-picked from old interviews, twisting my genuine love for Isabel into a marketing slogan. She gave exclusive interviews to luxury magazines and influential fragrance bloggers, spinning a tale of tradition, authenticity, and enduring love. Every word of it was a lie, and every lie was a shovel digging her own grave a little deeper. My son Julian was her willing accomplice. He became the legacy bearer, the handsome young heir being groomed to carry on his mother's artistic tradition. He did interviews for youth-focused media, speaking with a rehearsed sincerity about the emotional journey of watching his grandfather create this final tribute. They were a perfect team, a symphony of deception, and I was their silent, unseen composer. While they were busy building their glittering stage of lies, I was quietly preparing the evidence for the final act. I took the audio and video recordings of their affair, of their secret plotting, of their contemptuous mockery of me and my life's work. I edited them together, not into a dramatic montage, but into a simple, damning, chronological file. I also compiled the chemical analysis reports from the gas chromatograph, the irrefutable scientific proof of their ingredient-swapping fraud over the past year. I placed all of this information onto a dozen small, unmarked USB drives. My most crucial preparation, however, was in the timing. I knew the perfume would take about 2 weeks after being opened for the chemical reaction to fully mature, for the beautiful floral scent to transform into the foul, cabbage-like stench of its hidden heart. The grand launch party for Isabel's Secret Garden was scheduled for a Friday night at the city's most exclusive art gallery. This would be their moment of triumph, a room filled with wealthy customers, fashion critics, and the city's social elite, all there to celebrate their success. I looked at the calendar. The 2-week countdown was everything. The day after the launch party, I planned to send out my little USB drives. I would send them to the editors of the city's major newspapers, to the most influential fragrance bloggers, and to the board of directors of the National Perfumers Guild. They would receive the proof of the affair, the fraud, and the chemical formula for the stink bomb I had just unleashed, all at the exact moment that the first, most influential buyers of the perfume would be discovering that their $1,000 bottle of liquid luxury had begun to smell like a sewer. The trap was not a single event. It was a perfectly timed, multi-front assault. The scandal would not just be about a bad perfume. It would be a story of a sordid love affair, of a massive corporate fraud, and of a cynical public deception. I was not just going to ruin their launch. I was going to salt the very earth of their reputations, so that nothing would ever grow there again. The day of the launch party, Genevieve and Julian stopped by my house. They were dressed in stunning evening wear, their faces glowing with a greedy, triumphant excitement. "Aren't you coming, Theo?" Genevieve asked, a hint of theatrical disappointment in her voice. "It's your big night, after all." "No, my dear," I said, looking at them from my old armchair. "My work is done. Tonight is for you." They smiled, condescending and victorious. They saw a tired old man who had served his purpose, a man being left behind. They had no idea that I was a general, watching from my command tent as my perfectly engineered army marched into the heart of their empire. The first bottles were about to be opened. The fuses were about to be lit. The 2-week countdown to their public humiliation had begun. When you are waiting for a long-planned event to finally happen, what is the most difficult part? The anticipation, the fear of failure, or the finality of success? Let me know in the comments. The night of the launch party was, by all accounts, a spectacular success. I did not attend, but I watched it unfold from a distance, a silent observer monitoring the first stage of my plan's execution. Genevieve had ensured the event was a masterclass in luxury and illusion. The art gallery was transformed, bathed in soft, golden light with enormous bouquets of white roses, and jasmine scenting the air, a fragrant, beautiful lie that masked the chemical truth of the product they were selling. She had hired a string quartet, and waiters in crisp white jackets served champagne and impossibly delicate hors d'oeuvres. I watched the live social media feeds from the city's top fashion bloggers. They gushed about the elegance, the sophistication, the timeless romance of the evening. They posted beautifully filtered photos of the crystal bottle, its golden liquid gleaming under the gallery lights. Genevieve was the star of the show. She gave a moving, emotional speech, her voice catching as she spoke of her beloved sister Isabel and the final poignant tribute I had created. She painted a picture of a family united in grief and artistry. Julian stood by her side, the perfect image of a devoted, legacy-bearing son, his face a mask of solemn pride. They sold nearly 200 bottles of Isabel's Secret Garden, that night alone, at $1,000 each. It was a staggering triumph, a testament to the power of a well-told lie. I watched it all from my quiet laboratory, a small, cold smile on my face. Every bottle they sold, every gushing article that was written, was another nail in the coffin they were building for themselves. They were not just selling a product, they were selling a story, and I was about to provide the devastating final chapter. The 2-week countdown began. For me, it was a period of quiet, meticulous preparation. I packaged my dozen USB drives in small, discreet envelopes. I wrote a simple, anonymous cover letter for each one, with only a single sentence. The truth about Monroe Perfumes is in the files. The proof will be in the air. I addressed them to the hand-picked list of journalists, bloggers, and industry leaders who would have the power to turn a private scandal into a public inferno. During this time, I played my part. Genevieve and Julian would call me, their voices giddy with success, to give me updates on the incredible sales figures. "Theo, it's a phenomenon," Genevieve exclaimed a week after the launch. "We have a waiting list a mile long. We've created a legend." "That's wonderful, my dear," I would reply, my voice a quiet, reclusive whisper. "I'm so glad people are appreciating Isabel's memory." I could almost hear their condescending smiles through the phone. They were on top of the world, reveling in the success of their fraud, completely oblivious to the chemical time bomb that was slowly ticking in the bedrooms and bathrooms of their wealthiest customers. On the 10th day, the first signs of the coming storm began to appear. I saw a post on a niche, high-end perfume forum online. The post was titled, "Strange Smell from Isabel's Secret Garden?" The anonymous user wrote, "Has anyone else noticed a weird, cabbage-like note starting to come through? I thought I was going crazy, but it's definitely there, and it's getting stronger every day." A few other users chimed in, agreeing. They were confused, wondering if they had gotten a bad batch. I knew it was beginning. The silver nitrate was reacting with the dimethyl sulfide. The beautiful floral top notes were beginning to be devoured by the stench of rot. On the morning of the 14th day, the day my 2-week timer was up, I walked to the post office and mailed my 12 envelopes. The dominoes were now officially pushed. The story and the science were on their way. I then did one final thing. I took the single remaining bottle of Isabel's Secret Garden, the one I had kept for myself, and I placed it, along with a printout of the chromatograph report proving the fraudulent ingredients, in a box. I addressed it to the president of the National Perfumers Guild, a man I had known and respected for 40 years. I included a simple signed note. "My friend," I wrote, "my company has been compromised. This is the evidence. I trust you will do what is right for the integrity of our art." My plan was now fully in motion. A multi-pronged attack of public opinion, scientific proof, and industry outrage. I had built the trap, I had baited it, and I had just sent out the invitations to the execution. I went back to my lab, sat in my old leather chair, and for the first time in a month, I felt a sense of profound peace. The work was done. All I had to do now was sit back and wait for the beautiful, fragrant, and utterly false world of lies that Genevieve and Julian had built to come to its slow, stinking, and inevitable end. Have you ever had to wait patiently for a plan to come to fruition, knowing the outcome was already decided? Share your experience in the comments, and don't forget to hit the like button if you're ready for the fallout. The storm broke on a Wednesday. It did not begin with a phone call or a news report, but with a single devastating article published on the website of the country's most influential fragrance blogger, a woman who had been at the launch party and had written a gushing, poetic review of Isabel's Secret Garden. Her new article, posted just after she received my anonymous USB drive, was a masterpiece of journalistic fury and personal betrayal. The headline was simple and brutal: "A Garden of Lies." She described, in excruciating detail, the contents of the USB drive. She wrote about the affair between Genevieve and Julian, painting a sordid picture of a family legacy betrayed from within. She posted the scientific reports, the cold, hard proof of the cheap, synthetic ingredients that had been passed off as luxury. And then came the part that turned a corporate scandal into a viral sensation. She described the chemical time bomb. She told the story of the dimethyl sulfide, the silver nitrate, the pearls, and the slow, inevitable transformation of the perfume from a beautiful floral into a vile, cabbage-like stench. She ended the article with a single, devastating sentence: "I have my $1,000 bottle on my desk right now, and I can confirm the Emperor has no clothes, but he certainly does stink." That article was the spark that lit the inferno. Within hours, the story was everywhere. Major newspapers picked it up. News channels ran segments on it. The story was irresistible. A perfect cocktail of sex, lies, money, and a brilliant, diabolical act of chemical revenge. The phrase "stink bomb perfume" became a trending topic on social media. People who had bought the perfume began posting their own videos, uncorking their beautiful crystal bottles, and recoiling in theatrical disgust. The public humiliation was absolute, a digital age pillory from which there was no escape. Genevieve and Julian's phones must have been ringing off the hook, but they went into hiding. Their social media accounts were deleted. The Monroe Perfumes website was taken down. They had been so proud, so public in their triumph, and now they were utterly, devastatingly silent in their shame. The climax for me, however, was a much quieter, more personal affair. 2 days after the story broke, the president of the Perfumers Guild, the man to whom I had sent the final bottle, called me. His voice was grim and full of a righteous anger. "Theo," he said, "I've seen the reports. I've smelled the evidence. What they did to you, to Isabel's legacy, is a crime against our entire art form." He informed me that he had called an emergency meeting of the Guild's ethics board. Genevieve's professional membership was being revoked. Julian, who had been a junior member, was being expelled. They were being formally and publicly excommunicated from the very industry they had tried to swindle. But he was not done. The board has also voted unanimously, he continued, his voice softening, to award you posthumously for Isabel, and for yourself the Guild's Legacy Award, our highest honor, for your lifetime of integrity and artistry, and for your courage in exposing this fraud. I sat there in my quiet lab, the scent of real jasmine hanging in the air, and I felt a wave of emotion so profound it almost took my breath away. My revenge had never been about winning an award. But this was not just a victory. It was a restoration. It was a formal, public acknowledgement from my peers, from the people who truly understood our art, that Isabel's name, the Monroe name, was not a mark of shame, but a standard of excellence. The final, quiet coup de grace was delivered by my son. I received a letter from him, a frantic, desperate, multi-page screed that had been forwarded from my lawyer. It was not an apology. It was a tirade. He blamed me. He blamed Genevieve. He blamed the bloggers. He was a man thrashing in the ruins of his own making, incapable of seeing the truth, that his downfall was a direct and inevitable consequence of his own weak character and greedy choices. In the final paragraph, he begged me to sell the company, to give him his half of the inheritance so he could disappear and start a new life. I wrote back a single, simple sentence. There is no inheritance left to give you. I wrote, you and Genevieve have already sold it, one cheap, synthetic drop at a time. The company is worthless. Its name is a joke. This is the legacy you have created for yourself. I knew those words would be the final, crushing blow. The money, the thing he had betrayed his mother's memory for, the thing he had sacrificed his own integrity for, was gone, turned to smoke and a bad smell. He had played his hand and had lost everything, not just the fortune he craved, but the father he had taken for granted. His future was now a blank page, stained with the indelible, lingering stench of his own failure. When a villain is defeated, what is the most satisfying outcome? Their financial ruin, their public shame, or the quiet, personal moment they realize they have destroyed themselves? Let me know in the comments, and hit the subscribe button if you believe in the power of a good reputation. The aftermath of the scandal was a quiet, cleansing tide. The storm of media attention eventually subsided, leaving behind a landscape that was irrevocably changed. Monroe Perfumes, the company that had been my life's work, was in ruins. Its name was now synonymous with fraud and a very public, very smelly joke. The brand was toxic, the inventory worthless. But in that ruin, I found a strange and profound sense of freedom. I was no longer the custodian of a compromised legacy. I was simply Theodore Monroe, a perfumer with a clean slate. I did not try to salvage the company. To do so would have been to live forever in the shadow of my son's and Genevieve's betrayal. Instead, I let it die. I sold the brand name and the remaining untainted formulas to a large, reputable French perfume house for a modest sum. I did not sell it for the money. I sold it with one non-negotiable condition, that they would restore the classic Monroe scents to their original, all-natural glory, a way of ensuring that Isabel's true art would survive, even if her company did not. The laboratory, the building itself, I kept. It was my home, my sanctuary. I spent the next few months meticulously cleaning it, not just of the dust and clutter, but of the lingering psychic stain of the betrayal. I threw out all the synthetic ingredients, the cheap chemical ghosts of their greed. I scrubbed the floors, I polished the glass, I restored the space to what it had once been, a quiet, honest place of creation. My life became simpler, more focused. I did not retire. An artist never truly retires. I began to create again, not for a brand, not for a market, but for myself. I created small, bespoke batches of new perfumes, scents born not from a marketing brief, but from a memory, a feeling, a walk in the rain. I sold them to a small, select group of private clients, people who understood and appreciated the art of true perfumery. I was no longer a businessman. I was just a craftsman, and I had never been happier. I never saw Genevieve again. I heard through the industry grapevine that she had moved to Europe, trying to start over under a different name, but the story of the stink bomb perfume had followed her. She was a pariah, a cautionary tale whispered at trade shows. Her ambition, her one great driving force, had led her to a dead end of her own making. Julian's fate was quieter, but in many ways more tragic. My letter to him, the one telling him the inheritance was worthless, was the final crushing blow. He did not have the resilience or the character to rebuild. I learned from a distant relative that he was drifting, moving from one low-paying job to another, a ghost of a man haunted by the fortune he had grasped for and lost. His punishment was not a single event, but a slow, grinding, daily confrontation with his own mediocrity, a life sentence of what-ifs and regrets. One crisp autumn afternoon, about a year after the scandal had faded, I was in my lab, working on a new scent built around the warm, comforting note of old leather and pipe tobacco, a tribute to my own father. A young woman came to my door. She was a perfumery student, and she had come to Newport just to meet me. "Mr. Monroe," she said, her eyes shining with a genuine, unfeigned admiration. "The Guild gave you the Legacy Award, the story of what you did. It's required reading at my school. You saved the integrity of the art." We talked for hours. I showed her my lab. I let her smell the rare, real ingredients. I spoke to her of Isabel, of the poetry of scent, of the importance of honesty in creation. And as I looked at her young, eager, talented face, I felt a sense of peace so profound it was almost a physical sensation. My revenge was not in the ruin of my son or the exile of Genevieve. My true and lasting victory was in this. It was in the survival of the idea that art is more important than commerce, that truth is more powerful than a lie. It was in the quiet, profound satisfaction of knowing that Isabel's legacy was not a brand name or a bottle of perfume, but an ideal that was now being taught to a new generation. I had lost a company, I had lost a son, but I had saved the one thing that truly mattered, the soul of my life's work. That is how I got my so sweet revenge, and I would do it all over again. Thank you for following my story. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and leave a comment telling me what you believe is more important in a career: financial success or personal integrity.